Welcome to Healing Honeys, the podcast for girls with big dreams trying to balance it all. I'm Louise Rumble, serial entrepreneur, type A overachiever, healing girly, and holistic wellness coach who also once got called the Jesus of modern dating. But let's get one thing straight. My healing era has never been calm. I'm talking savage dating stories, 20 cigarettes a day, daddy issues, an anxious attachment style, and an autoimmune disorder too. Today, I've spent thousands of dollars on healing and therapy, and now I'm here to guide you, love you, and laugh with you as I share my favorite tips, tricks, and rituals that have saved me along the way. With new episodes every Wednesday, expect girl talk, psychology, and the nervous system, as well as love, sex, and dating, wellness, fitness, and a little bit of business and spirituality too. So get in, honey. We are balancing healing, hustling, and life, and the best is yet to come. And if you're looking for ad-free listening or my somatic healing subscription daily devotion, just head over to the show notes. Now, let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of Healing Honeys. So happy to have you here. I am your host, Louise Rumble. And today we are going to be talking about not using your voice. And the reason that I want to talk about this is because I watched a TikTok from Ashton Earle. So Alex Earle's sister, if you're not familiar with her, and she was like, guys, I've got a problem. I go to get my nails done and then I hate them so much and I check out, I tip, and then I go and get them redone immediately. This is the second time this month that this has happened. I think I need to learn how to speak for myself. I can't keep doing this. And I watched that and I was like, girl, we're not doing that. We're not going to be doing that anymore. But actually, what is so interesting is it really gave me food for thought, and it really got me researching into how many times, particularly as women, because let's be honest, how many men use their fucking voice all the fucking time, but particularly as women, how we do not use our voice. We do not use our power. We stay quiet. We stay small. And today we're going to jam on why that is. We're going to jam on why we stay silent, why we suppress things internally rather than taking up space and expressing ourselves. And I want to begin by maybe running through some of the situations when this might happen, because I think it's such a random question where if you say to someone like, oh, do you use your voice? Or, oh, do you speak up for yourself? Like, most of us will say, yes, I do. And the old me before healing would also have said, yes, I do. Because I actually could be like very confrontational sometimes when I was younger. I have like quite a hot and fiery temper. And so that would mean that like sometimes I would go towards conflict. So if you asked me if I communicated effectively, I would say, yeah, I can fucking communicate. I can tell you how I feel. But going to therapy helped me realize that I was only able to communicate when it was either with tears and sadness or anger. There wasn't really this like measured internal kind of approach where I had checked in with my internal world and been like, hey, how do we feel? Like, where is this showing up for us? Like, how is it showing up for us in our body? And then processing it and then sharing it outwards in a calm and measured manner, knowing that whatever happened as a result of that was absolutely fine because I had processed it and communicated it calmly. And looking back, anxious attachment style played a big part in this. I was not calm. I could easily like amygdala hijack and flip off the handle really quickly. And so I just think that's like an interesting nuance to understand before we get into today's episode. Because not using your voice doesn't mean that you are silent the entire time. It just means that you don't always speak up and share the truth of your internal experience with the external world around you. And let's get into some situations as to when that might happen. So people can be like, yes, that's me, or no, that's not me. So the first one is like obvious. It's this Ashton Earle, like nail salon, hair salon, like restaurant vibe where something doesn't work or you don't really like it and you don't say anything. Like you don't send it back. You don't say to the nail girl, like, I don't like this. And that kind of used to be me as well. Like I would reckon 5 years ago, I would get my nails done and I would also hate them. And I would just like be really annoyed. And I'd be like, this cost me $50, $100, like whatever they used to cost back then. And I wouldn't say anything. And now I say something. I mean, it's difficult living in Tulum, Mexico, because my nail girl doesn't speak English. So I'm trying to say something and she's like, I don't have a fucking clue what you're saying. And I'm like, okay, like I have to get Google Translate out and be like, different shade of pearl. And she's like, okay, fine. But that's the first thing to ask yourself is like, do you speak up in the nail salon? Do you speak up in the hairdresser? Do you send something back at a restaurant if you don't like it? You know, I'm a big send a back at a restaurant, because I feel like if I'm paying for something and I don't like it, I'm going to send it back. That's just like as simple as it is. Like if it's not cooked properly, or if it's like hot, or it's not hot, it's too hot, or it's like not hot enough, whatever, I'm going to say something. Whereas in my culture, UK, England, Britain, it's very much like you don't say anything. And so I know that like my brother, for example, he will roll his eyes if I complain about something in a restaurant. And that's something we're going to get into today, is like the reactions of other people around us keep us acting a certain way that we deem acceptable in their eyes. So the first thing I want to ask yourself is like, do you speak up in those situations? And, if you do speak up in those situations, do you say like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. Or do you just share your truth of what is not working for you and ask them to fix it? So that's the first one. The second one that I think we see happening all the time is dating. When you really fucking like someone and you don't tell them. Now, this is a situation that I have been in many, many times, and it goes deep, but I'm going to just share you a story so you can understand that you are not alone if this is you and maybe you like someone. So I met a guy in LA years ago, and I said actually in an earlier episode in this series that I was in LA and I was having the time of my life, and I was on Raya and I was like matching with these celebrities and I was like having so much fun, like life was really good. And I matched with this guy and I thought he was gorgeous. I thought he was handsome. He was really smart. He ran this amazing business. He had a great body. He had a massive dick, like surprisingly for his build. I was like, that is surprising. And he actually told me like 6 months later, oh yeah, like I'm like a quarter black. I'm not sure if he was joking. I don't think he was joking. I think he was being deadly serious. Anyway, he was like German, so that was unexpected. Anyway, we were just like having such a good time. And I think it was the first time where I really dated someone that kind of, for me, like ticked all the boxes. And I felt like had that ambition, had that business brain that like really stimulated me and that I was also attracted to. So we talk about this all the time. Like you have to have the chemistry and the compatibility. So I thought we had everything. And I've told everyone like at the time, oh yeah, he ticks all the boxes. What is the one box that he didn't tick? Okay, he lived in Germany. Where was I living? LA. Where was my home at that point? London. So the trip ended and, he went home first. I stayed in LA. And then when the pandemic hit, I left LA. But did I tell him how I felt? No. This was like before I was on my therapy journey. Did I say anything to him? No. Did I stay in contact with him for quite literally years, not telling him how I ever felt? Yeah. Did I think that at some point he was just going to wake up and realize that I was the love of his life? Yeah. Looking back, was there any way that he was really going to do that if I had never used my voice? No. And what was exacerbating me not using my voice? The fact that he was German. They are not known for being like the most emotionally open, I guess, culture. So he was silent. That enabled my emotional vulnerability where I didn't say anything. And I was like way too fucking scared to like share my truth or say anything. So we just stayed in this vacuum of silence for quite literally years. And like now we're friends, and obviously I'm in a very healthy, amazing relationship, and I hardly talk to this other guy maybe like once a year. We like connect and we have like a business catch up. But that for me is the prime example of like, I just didn't use my voice. And I think that dating is the exact example there as well. Like how many times have you dated someone, wanted to date someone and not used your voice? Not said on the first or second date, which is what Dr. Terry tells us to do the whole time, is to ask them like, what do you want from your life right now? Do you want a girlfriend? Do you want a boyfriend? Are you dating for marriage? Like, are you just looking to have some fun? Are you up for friends with benefits? We never ask that question. And that is a big part of today's episode, is because we don't use our voice when we're scared of the repercussion. And for some people, that repercussion might be, I'm scared that I'm going to come off too strong. For some people, the repercussion is, I'm scared I'm going to scare them away. I'm scared they're going to judge me. I'm scared they're going to reject me. A big part in dating of not using our voice is that we feel like we are going to be too loud, too forward, coming on too strong if we use our voice. And I think that's definitely like exacerbated if you're anxiously attached, because you are so scared of like pushing them away because you are so hypersensitive to the shifts in energy. And I also think it can be exacerbated if you're avoidant, because if you're avoidant, like you don't want to have those emotional discussions, or you are less inclined to have those emotional discussions. So I think this like not using your voice, not using your truth, not speaking your truth is very clear in the dating stage. And I think we can really see the specific types of people that it shows up for, which is like you're too scared to share your truth too early on in case you scare off the other person. And, you know, the home truth is that you will never scare off the right person by being you and by being real and by using your voice. Your voice is amazing. Your experiences are so important. But that is something that only comes when we start to heal that underlying wound, that self-esteem wound, that validation wound, which is like, this person has to pick me for me to be okay. This person has to pick me for me to like have my belief affirmed that like I'm worthy of being loved and, you know, being chosen. So I think this shows up a lot in dating, particularly in like the early to mid layers of the dating phase. But it can also show up in a relationship. So I think the third way that not using your voice shows up in a relationship is just not communicating about how you feel, particularly in the early stages of dating, you know, asking about their values, trying to work out if you're compatible. The first time that they do things that you don't like, the first times that they say things that you don't like, maybe they're rude to the waiter, maybe they're derogatory about women, maybe they're not nice to a stray cat on the sidewalk, you know, it can be so many things. The question is like, do you use your voice in that situation? And if not, why not? Again, it's the same thing. We're fearful of the repercussion. We're fearful that they're going to reject us. We're fearful that they're not going to continue on this path with us. And we're scared that, I guess, they're going to be like, no, thank you. But in the extreme, it can really show up like severely in relationships when you are not communicating your, I guess, like basic and most important needs. Like, what do you need as a human being? Because if we're with toxic people or we're in toxic relationships, they can tell us like that we are too much. They can do that explicitly. They can do that implicitly. And if we already have that belief, like at the core of us, that we are too much, then these individuals, they can really make us feel like that is the truth when it is not the truth. It is just the truth of your inner child who developed that belief like at a very misguided and young age, when really she or he deserved a totally different experience. And in this dating and relationship realm, I think the people that use their voice and the people that don't really come to light when you start to look at who is breaking up with people and how they are breaking up with them. So the ultimate person that is not able to use their voice is the ghoster. The person that ghosts is emotionally immature. They are afraid of conflict. They are afraid of communication. They're afraid not only of activating wounds in other people, but they are also deeply afraid of the wounds within themselves. Like, if they were to use their voice and to say like, hey, I've really enjoyed this with you, but I don't think it goes any further from, you know, with me from here, the other person might turn around and say, you're a fucking dick. You led me on. You're such a shit bloke. That's what I mean. Like, the fear of the repercussion is often why we don't share our truth. And counterintuitively, with someone that ghosts us, they are scared of using their voice because of the repercussion that it's going to have on you. Often they'll say like, oh, I just didn't want to hurt her. But also the repercussion it will have on them, which is that they have to sit with discomfort in their nervous system when they use their voice. So in the dating stage, ghosting is like a very clear way of seeing that someone cannot use their voice healthily. But also it can happen in relationships as well. And I always think that the way that someone breaks up with you tells you a lot about them. And this isn't always correct, because obviously there are situations where like you don't always have to have a conversation goodbye, particularly if there's like toxic or abusive situations involved. But for the most part, a healthy individual that can use their voice and share their truth and say, this is how I'm feeling. How does this make you feel? Is very emotionally healthy. But so many of us today aren't able to do that. And we're going to get into that in today's episode, which is like, why do we not use our voices? It isn't something that developed in adulthood. For the most part, it's something that developed a really, really long time ago. So to wrap up this not using your voice in the dating stage, I also think it's very important when it comes to like organizing dates. You know, imagine if like I love Chinese food, but imagine you hate Chinese food and the guy says, cool, I'm going to take you to this Chinese restaurant that's like 5 minutes down the road. It's my local. I love it. You're going to love it too. Okay. So you're like, oh my God, like small breadcrumb. He organized me a date. Oh my God, small breadcrumb. He told me I'm going to love it. Like he cares about how I feel. But flip side, it's 5 minutes from his house. And say, for example, you live 45 minutes across the city. He's not actually thinking of you in that situation, right? But so many of us would not use our voice and say, hey, sounds so nice. I would love to try your favorite Chinese restaurant. But for the first date, how about we meet somewhere more central? How about we meet somewhere more in the middle of us? How about we meet somewhere more convenient for both of us? And the thing is about when we start to use our voices and step into our power and start to understand that our voices matter is our voices become less scary. Because when I put it like that, that's not scary, is it? To say, that is so kind. Like, I can't wait to check that place out with you. But, you know, tomorrow, could we maybe meet in Soho? That is not scary. But when we are scared of the repercussions and we're scared of the experiences that we have to hold inside of our nervous system when something goes wrong, like when we don't like our nails or when we hate our haircut and we're scared of what the person in the nail salon's going to say, we're scared of inconveniencing them, we just don't. We suppress it. And this kind of suppression of your voice, this suppression of your truth, I see it in so many other places, like not just the nail salon, not just the dating world, not just the relationship world, but also in friendships, like particularly with the mean girl kind of atmosphere and vibe. I really think you can see like who uses their voice in those situations, because we've all been there, right? We've all been in a group of girls that are bitching about someone else, and we might actually like that person. And it's a lot easier just to say nothing, just to fit in. Like, as human beings, we're biologically wired to fit in, to not be rejected. Again, what is the fear of using your voice? The fear in this situation is being rejected from the pack of friends, even though on the outside, like, they're actually mean girls. But because of that, we don't speak up. We don't say, hey, I actually really like Natalie. You know, like, she's been a really good friend to me. And I love that quote, which I'm going to get wrong now, but it's like, align yourself with people that will always mention your name positively in rooms when you're not there. And that for me is true friendship, is not just jumping on the bitching bandwagon because like everyone else is jumping on it. And I do think to a like majority extent, I'm pretty good at this. Like, if someone says something that I don't agree with, I will stand up for them when they're not there. And I will say like, no, I don't agree with that. But it's hard, right? Like, there were many years of my life in my 20s where it was just easier to fit in. It was just easier to be the cool girl. And actually, this is so crazy that we're talking about this, because I had this memory as I was doing some subconscious work in my portal last week, had this memory come back to me. And I was like 15 years old, and it was in my subconscious mind, and I unlocked it by doing this work, which is super cool because it means I can like let it go. So I'm not holding on to like the energy of it anymore. Had this realization that like when I was 15, my best friend at the time became like good friends with like my other best friend. So they were not friends initially. We were at the same school, we were in the same year, but we were in like different houses and in different classes. So like they weren't friends, and they kind of became friends through me. Now, I remember I must have been older than 14 because I had a mobile phone. I remember I got an answer phone message, and it was my best friend at the time with the other girl. And they were basically saying like, should we call Louise? Do you want me to invite Louise? And the other girl was basically saying like, I don't mind. I don't know. I don't mind. Like, I couldn't hear what the other girl was saying. And obviously this was like so long ago that I really just can't remember. But it was so cool how when I was doing this subconscious work that came up for me. And I realized I never brought it up with them. I never said anything. And that's part of the thing about not using our voice, is like we suppress things that hurt us. We suppress things that are painful because of the repercussion. And because of that, we hold it. Like, it's not ours to hold. Like, I didn't deserve to be on the receiving end of that like answer phone message. And I should have said like, hey, I got that answer phone message. Like, it wasn't nice to receive. It didn't even need to be like, why are you guys such bitches? How could you do this to me? You know, everything is like way more dramatic when we're young, in my opinion, or as we get healthier, things get way more healthy to navigate, particularly if there's two healthy people. But that was just really cool for me to realize like, oh, A, this has been lodged in my subconscious mind for a very long time. And B, I didn't say anything. Like, I didn't use my voice. And that for me is really, really interesting. So I think it can show up in friendships. I think it can show up in the mean girl situation. I think it can also just show up like when you don't agree with your friend. Like maybe she wants to go here on a night out because she's single and she wants to like get laid or have some male attention. But maybe you're in a relationship and actually you want to just like, you know, hang out with her. Or maybe it's the flip side. Like you're the single one and you feel like you've lost your friends because they're all having babies and they're all married. And like, you know, you miss having fun times with your friends, but you don't communicate it to them. You just suppress it. And then you start to get secretly resentful. Like it's the same thing with the nails or the hair. You get so angry. You're like, why didn't I say anything? And you turn that energy like in on you, rather than turning it outwards on like the person that you should actually be having the healthy conversation with. So I think that's interesting. Like it happens in friendships, it happens in so many things. It also happens in work. Like work is a very real situation where suppressing your voice happens. Now, I absolutely acknowledge that this is, in my opinion, which is not any more important than anyone else's opinion, in my opinion, this is like almost the hardest place to use your voice. I think in a professional setting, there's an expectation that you have to just like be a certain way to like keep your job, stay in line, not ruffle anyone's feathers, not complain. You obviously could get someone fired if you complain. If you do that, then you might like, you know, they might have children that they can't provide for anymore. It's definitely one where I have found it harder to use my voice. And I think that that's because, well, again, the question is, what is the repercussion that you're scared of? And I think that a lot of imposter syndrome ties into the workplace, like the feeling that our voice is actually not valuable or worthy. And that's definitely something that I have gone through in my life, like qualifying as a lawyer. And I just never really felt like I deserved to be there. I felt like it was kind of a fluke that I got an internship. And yeah, so it just was kind of like, oh, if I just stay quiet, it's easier. Now, ironically, I use my voice the whole time. My job is literally using my voice, and that's been really cool. But I definitely think that even now it's something that like I have to work through. And, you know, I had to have a slightly uncomfortable conversation with my agent last week because I had a deal that came in and it kind of got lost. Like when I handed it over to my agent and the agency, they lost it internally and then like the brand deal fell through. I think the thing is like for me, my agency represents the biggest celebrities in the world. I'm talking like the biggest celebrities in the whole damn world. And I'm just tiny. I make them like no money. I'm literally probably one of the smallest creators on the roster. And so I just feel like I don't want to speak up and cause inconvenience because I just almost feel like I'm actually not even worthy of like being on the roster. And that's something that I need to work through and 100% ties back to imposter syndrome. So I think if that is you in the workplace, it's definitely about going back to that core wound of like worth and that like you are just as worthy of being in that workplace as anyone else. And yeah, I think it's about aligning yourself with the right people that believe in you and also understanding that we're all on our own path and it's going to look different. Like one person's career is going to look different to the next. But yeah, I think speaking up in the workplace is really hard. And you guys probably remember, like I got fired from my last ever client for using my voice. And that's one of the problems in using our voice is like we get shamed for it. And I'm going to go into this later in the episode. It's like why we don't use our voice. Like it's because like we get punished for it sometimes in today's society. And the situation that happened was like I was still freelancing for a beauty client before I went full time on the pod and before I built Daily Devotion. And I was writing them articles and they were really fucking good articles. I didn't get paid that much, but it wasn't like that bad. But I was not being paid on time. Every single month, I was not being paid on time. Sometimes I was being paid like 7 to 10 days late. I was being paid through PayPal. I was like, you are making like millions and millions and millions of dollars. Like, how are you paying me through PayPal, friends and family? Like, how do you not have a payroll? Like, why is there no team internally for me to bring this to? I got fired. I was told that my tone was aggressive and hostile. And it's in that moment like that it just reaffirms like why we don't use our voice, because we get labeled with being things that we're not. But do I regret using my voice? Like, no, I don't regret using my voice. Like I got fired. That's okay. The universe was like pushing me where it needed to push me. But I used my voice and I spoke my truth. And I did that because I had been in therapy for like 2 years at that point. And it felt really good knowing that I stood up for myself, knowing that I had my back, knowing that everything was okay because I was speaking my truth. And yeah, I got fired. Yeah, it wasn't great, but it actually just showed me that my voice, I wasn't welcome in that environment and in that business. And my voice is really valuable and I'm incredibly good at what I do work-wise. And so really it's their loss, but I don't hold any resentment or any guilt or anything. I just feel like it was time to move on and that's okay. Like I wish that brand all the best and I really enjoyed working for them like a small period of time. So workplace is when a lot of people don't use their voice. And I think that the final one that I'm going to go into today before we dig into like why we don't use our voice is in our family unit. You know, for many of us who are on this healing journey, we are the outcasts. We are the black sheep. We are the ones who feel too much. We feel too deeply. We've maybe made decisions that other people wouldn't. And that's really difficult. And I think that my therapy journey has taught me that there's been a lot of shame like in my family unit. And I've held that internally as being like too much, too emotional. My voice doesn't matter. And these things were never explicitly said. They just were kind of like implicitly learned like through the family dynamics. So I think that's something. It's like we really develop as humans when we're on this healing journey. And I'm so happy that you're here with me. But our families often don't develop around us. Like they don't change because they're not doing the work. And I always say, like, you think someone's changing? Like when people are like, oh my God, do you think my ex has changed for the new girl? I'm like, babe, the ex has not changed for the new girl. Because to change, you know how much consistency that requires. It requires self-awareness and action all day long, every day, committing to acknowledging your thoughts, acknowledging your coping mechanisms, acknowledging why you feel the way you do, acknowledging how it makes you feel on the inside, and then managing and essentially evolving your reactions so you don't react in the way that you used to. So I think the family unit is one where we suppress our truth a lot. And I know that we've spoken about this a lot in the house, which is our community area, like people feeling like their parents are just so stuck in like the older generations and they watch like the news channels that like my honeys don't agree with. And, you know, I had it with COVID. Like I had very different opinions as a holistic wellness coach and an integrative health practitioner to mainstream medical intervention. And yeah, sure, I agree with some things, but like for the most part, I didn't agree with some of the belief systems and like actions of my family. And that was really difficult. But what's also interesting is that like my dad came back to me like 2 years later and he just said, I just want to tell you that I love you so much and I'm so proud of you. Like you stood true to your beliefs throughout that whole thing. And it was really scary for us at the time that you were like being vocal about certain things, but now a lot of other things have come to light. And yeah, I'm just really proud of you. So I thought that was really sweet. So those are some of the key ways that I see us not using our voice in day-to-day life. And I think that now I want to get into why. Why do we suppress? Why do we stay silent? Why do we not use our voice? And the truth is, it is because using our voice is scary if it is something that we have never been taught to do. So as a child, if you are affirmed and mirrored and attuned all the time by your parents, always asking, how do you feel? How does this feel for you? How do you feel about this? Where do you feel this in your body? You know, always asking your opinions on things. And then also saying like, I can't ask your opinion on this right now because mommy needs to make a decision, but I really value your opinion. It's just that I have to make a really quick decision. But the next time I want to make this decision with you, right? Because I absolutely am not a mum, but I absolutely know that you cannot have these conversations all the time. Life is so hard with kids from what I've seen from my friends. So I'm not sitting here preaching saying like, oh, like this is what all mums should do. I just think it's about keeping an open communication with them and saying like, you know, mummy's making the decision now, but next time I want to ask you how you feel about this. But for the most part, that didn't happen for many of us in childhood. And it really wasn't like a normal thing to be happening in our childhoods. So if that doesn't happen, we're not taught to use our voice. And then explicitly and implicitly, we're also taught to not use our voice. You know, maybe mum was having mental health issues. Maybe dad was stressed at work. Maybe there were financial issues. Maybe one of our siblings was sick. Maybe we were moving house. Maybe we just implicitly felt that there was stress in the family or someone was stressed or someone was going through something. You know, we don't even have to have conscious memories of these things. But for the most part, we have learned as children that our voice like isn't going to help and it's not going to help us using it. So what that means is we become safer in like the suppression of that. Now, the suppression of that is actually very stressful for our nervous system as well. But actually using our voice can then become very stressful because we are fearful of what will happen when we use our voice. It comes back to the repercussion thing. And maybe as a kid, we felt like if we used our voice, it was going to detach our like attachment to our caregivers, or we were going to get criticized for it. Or maybe unconsciously we thought we were going to be loved less for it. And that's really, really stressful. So often when we use our voice or we want to use our voice, the threat, the fear of the repercussion is dysregulating for our nervous system. And what I mean by dysregulating is our nervous system says this is stressful and it releases stress hormones and it moves and like galvanizes into a space of fight or flight. It can also move into fawn and freeze, which become very, very interesting here. Because what I see in terms of using our voice is that we are all different and our nervous systems all function differently. But some of us who kind of step into fight or flight, we are more likely to use our voice. That is when we are more likely to go towards conflict. We are more likely to use anger as a way of processing our words. Maybe we speak too fast, too soon. We say things we don't mean to. We fly off the handle. We're not able to sit with how we feel. That's kind of the fight or flight response to using our voice. Now, the freeze and the fawn response, they are much more about like just total suppression of our voice. It's like, it is too scary to use my voice. So I am not going to do that because my body, my nervous system cannot sit with the potential repercussions of using my voice. The thought for Ashton Earl of saying to the nail salon, I hate this. I don't like my nails. You've done it wrong. It doesn't look good. That conflict was something that her nervous system could not sit with. It generated such uncomfortable feelings inside of her that all she could do was just go into freeze, go into fawn, shut down, and just wait her way through the experience until she could get out and get to safety. Now, what is safety? For her, safety was leaving the nail salon, not having to face the threat, running away from the threat. So that's the flight. And then going to another nail salon saying, like, I don't like these, please, can you redo them for me? The problem with this is that this suppression doesn't actually solve the problem. You know, not using your voice doesn't solve the problem because in that situation, at the very least, she was out of like another $200 of her time. So she probably spent $400 getting her nails done in total, which is ludicrous. I think she said they were $200 each. But more importantly is understanding that on like a psychological and a biological level, not using our voice is not healthy. It builds this internal tension up inside of us where we just don't even believe that our voice is worthy of being spoken. And what does that do? That leads us to weakening our sense of self over time and weakening like our belief in ourselves. Because the truth is like you should be able to use your voice. You deserve to use your voice. Your voice is important. And over time, if we continue to suppress that, we erode our sense of self. We really erode the strength of our essence and the strength of our power and the strength of the belief that we are worthy. And that is going to filter out into all areas of your life. You know, if you suppress your voice in the nail salon and you don't say to them, I fucking hate this, you are also going to suppress your voice in the dating realm. You're going to suppress your voice in the bedroom. You're going to suppress your voice in a relationship, and you're going to suppress your voice in the workplace and with your family. Now, I'm not saying it's going to show up across all of them exactly the same. Obviously, we have different dynamics where our nervous system will feel differently in different situations. But I think it's pretty fair to say that suppressing your voice in one area is going to show up in other areas. But most of all, it's going to show up in yourself. And I say this all the time. There are so many studies coming out about the connection between emotional suppression, you know, not expressing, and cancer and disease and autoimmune. And I had a chronic pain disorder for 14 years because partially I did not use my voice. I did not speak up when I was dating. I did not speak up when men wanted to have sex with me and I was like too scared to say no. I didn't speak up when people did things or said things that like didn't work for me. And I absolutely have seen a stark change in the pain that I experience. Now I use my voice more. And I think I'm testament to the fact that using your voice is very, very important to alleviate physical health conditions, but also just to change your relationship with yourself and how you feel about yourself. And I think it would be so empowering for Ashton to be able to say, hey, I'm really sorry, this is the wrong color. Hey, I'm really sorry, this is the wrong shape. Hey, this wasn't quite what I was hoping for. Would it be okay if you could do it again? Because the interesting thing is like when we are not in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, it's actually kind of easy when we think about saying like, hey, I don't like the color of these nails. Could I take them off and do another color? You can even say like, I'm happy to pay more. You know, it doesn't have to be this crazy big drama. So one of my favorite quotes here is like, you believed that you were keeping the peace, but whose peace were you really keeping? Because by you not using your voice outwards, you felt like you were keeping the peace with them, but you were actually building a war inside of you, internal chaos and internal conflict. So you actually weren't keeping the peace at all. You were giving them peace at the expense of your peace. And over time, this disconnection is going to lead to so many issues that we don't deserve to live with. So I think the first question as to how to start to heal and start to use your voice is, who taught you to stay quiet? Was it your parents? Were you taught that if you spoke up, you would get punished, that you would get judged, that you would get criticized, that your voice wasn't welcome? Maybe it was implicit. Maybe you were implicitly shamed if you were crying. You know, big girls don't cry, big boys don't cry. Ask yourself, like, how were emotions dealt with in the family unit? And who did you see that was expressing their voice healthily? Who did you see that was regulating their emotions healthily? Who did you see that said, hey, daddy's really angry right now, but it's okay because I'm going to work through this and it doesn't change how I feel about you. And I just need an hour to myself. I don't know about you, but I certainly did not see those conversations in my family unit. But I don't think it's just the family home that can drive this like suppression of your voice. I also think it can be school, high school, like needing to be quiet, needing to fit in. Like, for example, ballet, hobbies. Like I danced with the National Youth Ballet, the Royal Ballet, the London Junior Ballet. And I was just so shit scared of ever speaking because I wasn't the best. So it was like, I'm just going to stay quiet and I'm just going to do the best that I can to stay included, to stay a part of this. And that wasn't nice. I never said to my mum, like, I don't like it. Like, I don't feel good enough here until like, well, I did. And then I quit in the end. But I think my point is that not using our voice doesn't just come from the family home. It also comes from the dynamics around us with friends, with hobbies. Generally, just like, how did your friends and their parents speak to each other? Because when we're younger, we spend time with our friends and their parents. How did your wider family communicate? Was there crazy, like using your voice really loudly, like fight and flight? Or was there like suppression, freeze, fawn? No, we don't talk about emotions in this house. We're just going to pretend that everything's fine and we're going to brush it under the rug. And I think from Ashton Earle's perspective, I mean, I don't know too much about the specifics of her family situation, but I know that there was the very big scandal where her dad cheated on her mum with an escort who he is now married to, who is now her stepmom. They're all one big blended family. But I remember in Alex Earle's podcast, she said like everything was just suppressed under the rug. We just like did not talk about it. And that would make sense, right? That Ashton grew into someone that doesn't use her voice because she grew up in a family unit where they didn't talk about these things. And Alex said that she found out about the affair from like going on Google or something, which is very distressing for her and really hard to not be able to talk about it. So I think when we like compassionately start to understand kind of how the dots connect, everything starts to make a little bit more sense. And I think the next part of the healing journey is asking who benefits from you staying quiet. Okay. So a big part of what I've learned on this healing journey is like, when you start to speak up, you'll notice who pushes back and who doesn't like it when you're empowered and who doesn't like you using your voice, who doesn't like you setting boundaries. And someone said this before, I think it was Stephanie, the therapist that comes on the pod with us. I think she said, or maybe it was Terry, I think she says like boundaries are for you, they're not for the other person. So of course the other person is not going to like them. And that was like a bit of a wow moment for me where it was like, oh yeah, like of course this is like not going to work for the other person. So depending on how healthy they are going to push back against it if it doesn't work for them. And I think the strength that someone pushes back against a boundary depends on the strength of their own wounds. You know, if someone is like more narcissistic, more controlling, and they like you being quiet, they like you being submissive, if you start to use your voice, like they're going to shame you. They're going to tell you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. They're going to laugh at you. Like they're going to do these things that make you be quiet again because it works for them. But the truth is, it's like the people that resist your voice, they're the ones that benefit from your silence. But what I also want you guys to know is you only lose the wrong people by speaking up, not the right ones. Your real friends, your real relationships, people who are real dating prospects, you will not lose them by sharing your opinion. Even if your opinions are way left field, totally really niche, there are going to be people out there that can support you on those. Like, you can find communities who hold the same viewpoint as you. I think it's safe to say there's probably not one person in this world who has or holds a set of viewpoints that is only theirs and no one else in the whole world agrees with them. Look at even the extremists who believe in the most awful things. Like, there are groups of people that believe in that. So you will only lose the wrong people by speaking up. The right ones, they are always going to stay with you. But to actually start to use your voice, you need to understand that it starts in the nervous system, right? Because if we have a nervous system response every time we think about using our voice or actually using our voice, whether that is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, we need to work with that to be able to start using our voice. We can't just say okay, today I reclaim my power. I'm going to go and share my truth with everyone. I'm going to share my opinion. I'm going to set boundaries. It's not as easy as that, unfortunately. It's more of a gentle and compassionate journey to say, okay, how do I feel when I think about using my voice? What fear is arising in me when I'm scared of using my voice? Why do I fear this fear around this person? And what does this fear do to my nervous system? Where do I feel it in my body? What does it make me want to do? What does it make me want to say or not say? And I think that is one of the starting points to really use your voice, is understanding you can change this. You can heal this. You can reclaim your power. You can build a group and a network of people around you who value your voice and value your boundaries and don't want you to play small. But to start that, it needs to start within you. And you need to befriend your own patterns and your own nervous system responses. And also you need to get friendly with that voice inside of your head. Because a huge part of not using your voice is the inner critic. It's the person inside of our heads that says, oh my fucking God, don't say that. Oh my God, you can't tell them that you hate your nails. Oh my God, they're going to think that you're X. Oh my God, they're going to think that I'm Y. Oh, they're never going to let me come back. So understanding that that inner voice inside of your head is not actually you. It's just telling you to stay quiet because it's trying to keep you safe. That is a huge part of this healing journey. And the voice that says, don't speak up, you'll cause problems, is not truth. It is not reality. So as we come to wrap up today's episode, I just want to remind you of the power in your voice, the power of who you are, the power of the story that you have lived through, the power of your boundaries and your essence and everything that you are. If you are a woman, high chances you are by listening to this, you are so powerful you don't even realize. We live in a patriarchal system where we have been taught by men that we are submissive and inferior to men. Our voice does not matter because of generations that we have lived through. And yes, there are still many dynamics where our voice does not get valued in the same way that men's do. But who is going to change that? Us. We are going to change that together by being women that use our voice, by being women that start uncomfortable discussions, by being women that have these conversations. But we can't start doing that until we realize what is the root core fear that is existing behind us using our voice. And it's normally a fear of being too much, a fear that we're going to show ourselves that we're not enough, that we're bad, that we're defective, a fear of rejection, a fear of judgment, a fear of being seen, and most of all, conditioning, programming that has brainwashed you to think your voice doesn't matter. But your voice does matter, and the more you use your voice, every area of your life is going to flourish. Not just in the nail salon, not just in the hairdressers or in the restaurant, but in the workplace, in the dating realm, in your relationship, and in your family unit too. And there are always going to be people that can't hold space for your voice. But I just wanted to remind you that here at Healing Honeys, your voice matters. It's a huge part of why our community area is such a huge thing around what we do, because it's full of love and people sharing. And actually someone shared recently that someone had treated them badly, and in the dating world they wanted to send a message, and they did, and it was so scary for their nervous system, but they did it. They regulated their way through it, and they said they never would have been able to do this if it wasn't for doing the somatic work at Daily Devotion. So if you want to come and join us on that, you can do that through the link in the show notes. There's a 14-day free trial for you, as well as a Nervous System 101 free course so you can understand more about the fight, flight, freeze, fawn and subconscious mind that has built this belief that your voice is not important and it should stay small. And there's also a workshop in there around emotional suppression and how it's really important that we heal that together in order to live the best version of this life. Thank you so much for watching, doing your healing work with me today. As ever, please follow and subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you stream the show. It really, really helps me on my healing revolution to help as many people as possible. And if you're watching on YouTube, please click subscribe so you always get notified whenever a new episode drops. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me. I love you from the bottom of my heart, and I will see you back on another Healing Honeys episode very soon. Goodbye.